Coat came to the top of the stairs and opened the door. His room was austere, almost monkish. There was a black stone fireplace in the center of the room, a pair of chairs, and a small desk. The only other furniture was a narrow bed with a large, dark chest at its foot. Nothing decorated the walls or covered the wooden floor. There were footsteps in the hall, and a young man stepped into the room, carrying a bowl of stew that steamed and smelled of pepper. He was dark and charming, with a quick smile and cunning eyes. "You haven't been this late in weeks," he said as he handed over the bowl. "There must have been good stories tonight, Reshi." Reshi was another of the innkeeper's names, a nickname almost. The sound of it tugged one corner of his mouth into a wry smile as he sank into the deep chair in front of the fire. "So what did you learn today, Bast?" "Today, master, I learned why great lovers have better eyesight than great scholars." "And why is that, Bast?" Coat asked, amusement touching the edges of his voice. Bast closed the door and returned to sit in the second chair, turning it to face his teacher and the fire. He moved with a strange delicacy and grace, as if he were close to dancing. "Well, Reshi, all the rich books are found inside where the light is bad. But lovely girls tend to be out in the sunshine, and therefore much easier to study without risk of injuring one's eyes." Coat nodded, but an exceptionally clever student could take a book outside, thus bettering himself without fear of lessening his much-loved faculty of sight. "I thought the same thing, Reshi, being, of course, an exceptionally clever student. Of course. But when I found a place to sit in the sun where I could read, a beautiful girl came along and kept me from doing anything of the sort." Bast finished with a flourish. Coat sighed. "Am I correct in assuming you didn't manage to read any of Selim Tincture today?" Bast managed to look somewhat ashamed. Looking into the fire, Coat tried to assume a stern face and failed. "Ah, Bast, I hope she was lovely as a warm wind in the shade. I'm a bad teacher to say it, but I'm glad. I don't feel up to a long bout of lessons right now." There was a moment of silence. "Carter was attacked by a Skraeling tonight." Bast's easy smile fell away like a cracked mask, leaving his face stricken and pale. "The Skrael?" He came halfway to his feet as if he would bolt from the room, then gave an embarrassed frown and forced himself back down into his chair. "How do you know? Who found his body?" "He's still alive, Bast. He brought it back. There was only one." "There's no such thing as one Skraeling," Bast said flatly. "You know that." "I know," Coat said. "The fact remains, there was only one." "And he killed it," Bast said. "It couldn't have been a Skraeling. Maybe—" "Bast. It was one of the Skrael. I saw it." Coat gave him a serious look. "He was lucky, that's all. Even so, he was badly hurt. 48 stitches. I used up nearly all my gut." Coat picked up his bowl of stew. "If anyone asks, tell them my grandfather was a caravan guard who taught me how to clean and stitch a wound. They were too shocked to ask about it tonight, but tomorrow, some of them might get curious. I don't want that." He blew into his bowl, raising a cloud of steam around his face. "What did you do with the body?" "I didn't do anything with it," Coat said pointedly. "I am just an innkeeper. This sort of thing is quite beyond me." "Reshi, you can't just let them muddle through this on their own." Coat sighed. "They took it to the priest. He did all the right things for all the wrong reasons." Bast opened his mouth, but Coat continued before he could say anything. "Yes, I made sure the pit was deep enough. Yes, I made sure there was rowan wood in the fire. Yes, I made sure it burned long and hot before they buried it. And yes, I made sure no one kept a piece of it as a souvenir." He scowled, his eyebrows drawing together. I'm not an idiot, you know. Bast visibly relaxed, settling back into his chair. I know you're not, Reshi, but I wouldn't trust half these people to piss leeward without help. He looked thoughtful for a moment. I can't imagine why there was only one. Maybe they died coming over the mountains, Coat suggested. All but this one. It's possible, Bast admitted reluctantly. Maybe it was that storm from a couple nights back, Coat pointed out. A real wagon tipper, as we used to say back in the troop. All the wind and rain might have scattered the one loose from the pack. I like your first idea better, Reshi, Bast said uncomfortably. 3 or 4 Skrull would go through this town like a hot knife through butter. More like several hot knives through several dozen farmers, Bast said dryly. These people can't defend themselves. I bet there aren't 6 swords in this whole town. Not that swords would do much good against this Grail. There was a long moment of thoughtful silence. After a moment, Bast began to fidget. Any news? Coat shook his head. They didn't get to the news tonight. Carter disrupted things while they were still telling stories. That's something, I suppose. They'll be back tomorrow night. It'll give me something to do.